Ready to go?
Okay. Thanks for coming out, everybody. My name's Robert Bruce, and I work for Sumiko Audio, Pro-Ject Audio. We're the U.S. importer for Pro-Ject, Sumiko Phono Cartridges, Rotel Audio Gear, and Sonus Faber speakers. We're a division of the Macintosh Group, but we operate independently, and my responsibility is actually Sumiko Phono Cartridges and Pro-Ject audio systems, and that includes turntables, of course, kind of the most famous product that Pro-Ject makes, but we make all kinds of electronics, CD players, CD transport, streamers, DACs, preamps, amps, a whole number of things, even record cleaning machines, all kinds of accessories. Folks aren't often aware of that because of the famous nature of the turntable side of things. So a little bit of background. Pro-Ject is an Austrian company and founded by a fellow named Heinz Lichtenegger. And in 1991, CDs had dominated the market and records were dropping off in popularity. Tons of used records were available and there were still new records on the market, but the dominance of CD was really pushing. And Mr. Lichtenegger felt that there was a hole in the market because an affordable turntable, if it was well built, would outperform an equivalent CD player. So he designed his first turntable, the Model 1, $350, it was $300 or $350 at the time in 91. Huge critical and commercial success. Was a massive seller, and it led to an evolution in the range of turntables now known as Debut, and we have models ranging from about $500 to $1,000 in the Debut range. But the whole range of turntables starts actually at $300, $269 technically, although it's going to go up a little bit this summer. We'll have some price increases this summer because of materials costs that are going up that are unavoidable. Pro-Ject is unique in that the design and engineering facility is in Vienna, Austria, and all the manufacturing is done in Europe. And that is for all the turntables, all the electronics, the record vacuum cleaning machine. Two primary plants. One is in Slovakia that does electronics. One in the Czech Republic that is the turntable manufacturing facility. We have a new company that we're contracting with in Germany to build some turntables, and that just came about because there were other European brands that used to make turntables in Germany, and they pulled out, and they're now all manufacturing in China or Taiwan. And that factory came to Pro-Ject and said, we've got skilled manufacturing facility that we could build some stuff for you. So they're building a new turntable for us, the first ever automatic called the A1. Pro-Ject has always made manual turntables because there's an advantage sonically. When you couple the arm to the drive system to move the arm over and lift it up and move it back at the end, there are compromises in how that mechanical operation works. So we have never made an automatic turntable, but have always had demand for it. And so when the German manufacturer came to the Pro-Ject engineers, they said, well, let's see if we can do it. And they worked with them to modify the mechanism they were using, build into a heavier base. Typically, automatic turntables are plastic, maybe stamped steel or some lightweight aluminum, but most of the time they're plastic or particle board. Big reason they don't sound good is because the cabinet is real resonant. So the A1 Automat that we've introduced weighs a little bit more, it feels a little more substantial. It addresses the automatic market, doesn't offer as high a level of performance as our manual turntables. So none of the manual turntables will go away, and in fact our whole line, everything but that one right now, is fully manual and will remain that way. This is one of our less expensive turntables. This one's about $500. This is a great entry turntable that has a built-in phono preamp. It is inclusive of cartridge. This is the kind of thing that you can take out of the box and in 15 minutes you're playing a record. Great sounding, great value. There's some things that you can do to upgrade it and make it sound even better. Really a great turntable for the money. The step up from it is a model called the Debut Carbon Evo. That's a $600 turntable, and that is the single largest selling turntable model in the world currently. Fantastic performer, great value, incredibly well built, and the bad thing is we're almost perpetually on back order. It also comes in a multitude of colors, and so it's kind of lately been, oh, we have satin blue in stock. Oh, we've got satin yellow. We've got high gloss black. We don't have white. We don't have red. We don't have green. So it's been shuffling a lot, trying to keep production up and go across the available options. So it's been a real challenge. But as you go up, the great thing that Pro-Ject does in the turntable line is there are mechanical reasons, electrical reasons. Performance is the advantage. When you spend more, you don't get more features, more buttons, more lights. You know, it's really aimed at what will give a higher level of performance. And the great thing is our top turntable, which is in the $15,000 range, the Signature 12, much of the technology that was developed for that finds its way through the range of all of our turntables. There are certain models just stand out in the market that are really incredible performers versus anything else on the market. Our top is one of those. It gets ignored because too often people consider Pro-Ject as great value and great moderately priced turntables, which indeed our turntables are, but the whole range, we've got one up here to show, and we'll play some music in a little bit as well. We have a model called the Extension 9 Evolution. This is a $3,500 turntable or $4,000 equipped with one of our Sumiko moving coil cartridges, and it is amazing. Its performance for the price is competitive with other turntables in the $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 range. And it is because of the quality of engineering, manufacturing, tolerances, all kinds of factors. But just a good example of the performance of the turntable for sound quality. It's really, the engineering team doesn't say, oh, let's just, make this one heavier, or let's make it bigger, or put more lights on it, or do things for marketing reasons. It's really based on the performance. Let me grab some water. Does anybody have a Pro-Ject turntable? Which one?
Debut Carbon Evo.
What color?
Satin black.
Oh, nice. And what do you have?
Same thing, red.
Wow, cool.
Same one in white.
You cover the spectrum.
It's a good thing I said it's such a great value, right? But it is. I mean, it's that wasn't a setup. I don't know you guys or anything, so. But yeah, it's a killer. Another thing that's really wonderful is there are upgrade options that you can do to that turntable among many of our others. The first of which is incredibly easy and a great way to upgrade. The cartridge that is included on a Debut Evo, Debut Carbon Evo, is the Rainier, Sumiko Rainier. The body is actually the same as this one. This one's called the Moonstone. The stylus slides out and 3 models above that stylus fit exactly into the cartridge body. Takes no change in tracking force or height adjustment or VTA or anything else. It's literally slide out the old stylus, slide in the new stylus, and you've made a clear upgrade in performance for the cost of the stylus in a 2-minute change out. So that's a really incredible way to make a very audible upgrade very easily and pretty inexpensively. There are a couple of other things. You can go from the stamped steel platter that has a damping ring inside of it to an acrylic platter. That makes a clear upgrade because of adding mass, and the acrylic material is more acoustically inert or dead than the steel platter that's the standard platter. Another thing that can be done is the inner platter bearing assembly. The standard one is a machined polymer that has the bearing pressed into it. The upgraded model is a machined aluminum, closer tolerance, and actually has a better bearing that's fitted to it, but fits in the same bearing well of the debut Carbon Evo. So really cool that you can buy a turntable and not be stuck. If you decided in a year or two, yeah, I want to make an upgrade, great, you can do it. You don't have to. Sounds great. Once it's set up out of the box, it's rugged, reliable, consistent, all of that. But if you do get the itch, and for me, the nice thing about having that upgrade potential is making your record sound even better. To me, 2 sides to turntable performance, one of which is preserving your records. When you buy records, especially new records and the reissues, a lot of them are 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, some of the box sets, $100, $200, $300. Pretty serious investment. The worst thing you can do is play it on a $99 plastic turntable. Those will really beat up the surface of the records. The point of a good turntable, its job is to keep the stylus tip in contact with the record groove, let that stylus wiggle around and generate an electrical signal. That electrical signal comes out of the turntable, goes into the rest of the system like a phono preamp, and then an amplifier out to the speakers. But the important thing is to get more music out of the record, that stylus tip has to be allowed to stay perfectly in contact with the record groove regardless of what the groove is doing. Then send the electrical signal out for the system to deal with. The better this turntable is, if everything is designed for performance, the better that stylus is allowed to stay in the record groove and get all the information. It starts with the turntable. The turntable has to have accurate speed, spinning at 33 1/3 or 45 RPM. It has to be immune to acoustic and mechanical energy getting into the base or the plinth of the turntable. And then we have rigidity. The turntable shouldn't flex, wobble, vibrate, buzz. That will impact what the cartridge and stylus are trying to do. Then we have the platter, and its job is to maintain the speed accurately without adding any mechanical energy, any vibration, any acoustic information breaking through. Finally, the tone arm, whose job is to allow that stylus to move exactly where it wants to. It has to move horizontally and vertically, perfectly freely, but in no other direction. It shouldn't wobble, shake, vibrate. Any mechanical loss there from the little stylus tip, which is microscopically small movements, incredibly fast. So you can realize that if it's a micron, if that turntable body is vibrating just a teeny bit, you've totally changed how the stylus tip is reading the record groove. And the importance of that comes through so that as you go up in our range, the advantage is just the ultimate performance of allowing that cartridge to do its job. So really I feel the important thing is the turntable has to do its job, then the tone arm, then the cartridge. You can put a cartridge on and make a change, and it will affect the tonal balance and may affect some other areas. But if the rest of the turntable is not allowing it to do its job, there's no point in putting a high-end moving coil multi-$1,000 cartridge on a $300 turntable. Even though that cartridge is awesome and may be built by hand and have wonderful technical aspects, it can't do its job. So that would be like putting racing wheels and tires on a, car you bought in the junkyard for $100 that everything's shot. Don't want to do it. But you do want balance through the system. And so up to the point of our X2, we include a cartridge. And we include an appropriate cartridge, not too far up, not too far down, but something that works correctly with the level of performance of the turntable. But of course, our turntables will work, and our tone arms in particular, will work with a wide range of other phono cartridges, so you've always got the opportunity. But the nice thing is, the majority of our turntables come with a cartridge pre-mounted. So its alignment, vertical tracking angle, all the critical things are set. It's simply a matter of you assemble the turntable, like put the platter on, put the belt on, set the tracking force, put the anti-skate weight on, but a real simple, short process allowing you to get the turntable up and running because we've provided a good cartridge that matches it well and does what the turntable is capable of doing. But at any time, again, you can upgrade. I mentioned the Rainier, our white stylus tip on the Carbon Debut Evo. This model is called the X2. This offers a clear step up over the Debut Carbon Evo. It has a better base. It has a better power supply for the motor, better bearing, better platter, better tone arm. But again, the only thing that really matters is it sounds better. So, yeah, looks a little bit bigger because a heavier base, but principally the same. You can't really tell a big difference other than size. And this one, as I mentioned, is $500. Upholds the same values, but because of the cost, materials are compromised or scaled down. And so the performance for the price of this is exceptional. But as you go up our line, the same thing still happens. Beyond the turntables, our electronics are the same way. They kind of get ignored because they look a little different. A lot of them are real small. This little box is an integrated amp. So that is a preamp and an amp. It even has a basic phono stage in it. 80 watts per channel, but doesn't look like anything. What it does do is sound excellent. Again, the hallmark of the design of the engineering staff is how can we make it the best for the price? The smaller box actually is an advantage. It costs less. So instead of putting it in big audio jewelry, which a lot of manufacturers do, Pro-Ject decided it makes sense to make it small. Now, as you go up our range, these guys are kind of in the middle level. Our top end is a little bit bigger, but it's still the same width, but a little taller. And that's just because there's more room for the electronics to fit inside. And then we do things like have outboard power supplies, standard, but also upgrade options that can be added to improve the performance even further by adding a large outboard power supply. But the whole range, we have phono stages from under $100 on up to $2,000. Our $2,000 phono stage is the least expensive recommended Class A stereophile component in the current issue, April issue. It's recognized as great sounding, great flexibility. It has incredible usability, matching specific characteristics of the phono cartridge with impedance, if it's a moving magnet, capacitance, gain depending on the output level of the phono cartridge to match the rest of the system. But the flexibility is outstanding, but the performance is really the key element. So I've got some records and we're gonna play some music. Anyone have questions, comments, anything about anything that we've talked about, or I've talked about, I should say?
Here, I'll ask one.
Okay,
If you're gonna upgrade the stylus, to you said it was Moonstone?
yes.
From the basic one on the Rainier,
Yeah.
just dollars and cents, what is?
Let's see, the
jump up?
Moonstone stylus is 300. The cartridge itself is 450. So it costs less than buying the whole cartridge, but it's you know, it's a major portion of the cost of the cartridge. So, but the cartridge range, the Rainier, which is our standard on the debut Carbon Evo, that one's a $150 cartridge. The next model up, the Olympia, is $200. The next model up is the Moonstone, this one, which sells for $300. When they're mounted on a turntable, there is always a substantial savings. Up from there, we have a brand new cartridge called the Wellfleet, which is $450. Then we have the Amethyst, our top moving magnet, $600. I'll talk a little bit about moving magnet and moving coil because there's some interesting misconceptions on the market about those two cartridge design types. In a moderate price cartridge, almost everything is going to be a moving magnet. It's going to be a design that's, you know, established as the easiest, most compatible design. It can sound really good, doesn't necessarily have to sound good. There are some bad sounding moving magnet cartridges out there. Higher performance, there are some advantages to a moving coil design, and in the case of the Sumiko cartridge range, our least expensive moving coil is $500, and there are some things it does not do as well as our equivalent price moving magnet cartridges. So even though a lot of people will go, oh, moving coil's superior, oh, wow, you know, especially in the higher end, I would fall into agreement with that. But in a moderate price, the difference is the engineering, cost of materials, cost of build. There are different factors that go in. So the differences in the two, and I'll make it real simple, but it can be as difficult as you want. The stylus tip that I talked about, how important its job is to trace the record groove, the stylus tip is attached to a cantilever, a little arm. The stylus tip is a little piece of diamond. In an inexpensive cartridge, there's just a little bitty tip that's diamond. It's glued to a piece of steel, and then that's glued to the tone arm, or to the cantilever, the arm that holds the tip. At the back of that arm, when the tip is wiggling in the record groove, it's causing motion through the arm into either magnets, moving magnet, or coils, moving coil. When the cantilever's moving magnets, the problem that is associated with that is magnets weigh more. So they cause the stylus tip to move less and less rapidly. So the theory being that moving magnet, it's okay, but it doesn't sound as good because moving coil, there's less mass at the base of the tone of the cantilever. Moving coil can move faster, can more accurately trace the record groove. Only partially true, because the engineering of both dictate the ultimate achievable performance. There are moving coil cartridges that are not well executed that don't have good performance, and there are moving magnet cartridges that are really well built that offer really high performance. In the Sumiko range, our cartridge design is that the best performance for the price and it's not necessarily that it has to be moving magnet or moving coil. The same engineering team and fabricators build all the cartridges in Yokohama, Japan. They're all working on the whole range, but the moving coil are definitely more labor intensive, more skilled manufacturing and assembly, but it's because we've determined that what makes sense is each price level dictates what the design and the execution of that phono cartridge is. Again, the moving magnet design has higher output. That means it's easier for the electronics down the line to deal with it. So commonly with a device, a receiver or a preamp or an integrated amp that has a phono stage, they'll almost always have moving magnet. And occasionally they'll have moving coil, but usually you step up to a specialty phono preamp to get moving coil. The reason for that is the inherent gain required. You need to amplify the signal higher because you're getting less out of the cartridge. You need to amplify it. Doing that takes real care. That signal is so minute, it's about 1/100th of what's coming out of a CD player. So it has to be amplified tremendously and then actually even equalized, because the way a record's cut has a tonal balance that's very odd, and the electronics have to compensate to make it sound full range and consistent and even. So there's a lot going on, but suffice to say that there are good and bad designs of all cartridge types. We're pretty proud of the fact that all of our cartridges, in comparison to others, review-wise, commercially, do really well because they're really good sounding, good value. The moving magnet cartridges are upgradable simply by replacing the stylus. A moving coil cartridge does not have a replaceable stylus assembly, so it has to be rebuilt. So in the case of when a moving coil cartridge wears out in 1,000 to 2,000 hours of playing time, we take it back and apply a portion of what you paid towards a new cartridge, and then you get a bigger discount if you move up a level as opposed to moving across at the same level. So instead of, yep, you unplug the stylus and plug it in, you get a new cartridge is basically how that works. So, and we even go back quite a few years. So if you bought one of our cartridges from 15 or 20 years ago, it still has value towards a new cartridge. So if you ever see any Sumiko phono cartridges, don't throw them away. So they have value. Phono preamps, I want to talk a little bit about those. The really important element of matching the phono cartridge to the phono preamp is, depending on the output level of the phono cartridge, depending on the impedance, if it's a moving coil, both the internal and external it wants to be loaded by, the gain and capacitance for a moving magnet cartridge, those all vary. There are phono preamps on the market from probably $29 to, I saw one in Florida 2 weeks ago, it was $260,000. Ours range from $100 to $2,000. So they're not at the lowest end, they're not at the highest end, but again, what they offer is at each price level a really incredible level of performance. One of them that's brand new, it's not actually out yet, I just got this one to play with and brought it over here. This will be a $900 phono preamp. It is fully balanced input to output, which is really unique. Most turntables have RCA phono outputs, and you have a right and a left RCA and a ground. Well, the best turntables and phono preamps also have, have balanced connection. Balanced has been the standard in the professional world forever. and that is because of noise and interference. Microphones are really susceptible to pick up noise. So balanced connections inherently are lower noise, less susceptible to pick up interference. The way that a balanced signal works is you have a plus, a minus, and a ground, instead of in an RCA where the center pin is the positive, the negative is also the ground. It's on the outside of this RCA connector. And that's a single-ended or RCA type connection. Inherently, it's more vulnerable to pick up noise and interference. Could be radio frequency, could be electromagnetic interference, could be your microwave, your Wi-Fi router, your cordless phone, all kinds of things radiate EMI and RFI. So going to balanced makes a clear improvement in noise reduction. Well, it's been done. Lots of people do it in very expensive turntables, very expensive phono preamps. We will have a new phono preamp next month that will be $500, balanced input, balanced output. This one's going to be $900. Our turntables from the Carbon Debut Evo on up can be configured to balance connection. You would unplug the cable that comes with the turntable, plug in with our RCA to balanced, because our connectors, interestingly, on the back of the turntable, the ground is not tied to the signal of either channel. So even though they have little RCA plugs on the back, we make a cable, you plug that RCA in on one end, and on the other end is actually the XLR. So you attach ground on the turntable end, but there's no ground on the phono preamp end. It's simply two XLR cables. And again, the advantage really there is not as great as having a turntable with a balanced connection or a DIN. This turntable has a DIN connector on the bottom, which is multiple pins, and that is really a balanced connection. It's all just on one pin, so it's a phono tone arm standard. But that's what's connected. So we are actually running balanced from the turntable into the phono stage, and then we're running single-ended from the phono stage to the integrated amplifier. So we're not getting all the potential performance because we would need a balanced preamp or balanced integrated amp in this system. Again, the neat thing is, even a turntable that we made 5 years ago, 8 years ago, that has removable connections. Some of our very inexpensive ones have a captive cord that comes out of the turntable with the RCA plugs on it. Those are not upgradable. Those will not be able to be made balanced. But again, from our debut Carbon Evo on up, those will be able to be converted to balanced and then run a balanced phono preamp, and again, a clear improvement in performance at a modest cost versus everything else that's out there, because there are lots of really high-end balanced phono preamps, and granted they're really good, but out of the reach of the vast majority of folks. And so Pro-Ject's always had value in mind, and this will be another, we'll start to see critical, all the reviewers and things are asking for our new phono stages and turntables that are set up for balance connection, and we'll have some interesting press and stuff coming up soon. So the thing though that kind of is the basis that how I started in the industry was first time I ever heard a good system. I owned a bunch of records, went to a store. We used to have a place here called David Beatty Stereo in Westport, and I walked in and the guy goes, I was 15, I think. He said, "You ever heard of really good stereo?" And I was like, "Oh oh yeah, I think I have one at home. It was, mass market stuff that I thought was pretty good, a Pioneer receiver and some stuff. And he played a system, and I was like, holy cow, this was a whole different world. He played some records that I owned, and they sounded nothing like the way they sounded from my system at home. And that was the spur, what got me interested in this. And I'm a music lover, and I collect records and CDs and high-res files, and I stream and do all those things. But for me, the most fun, having a good turntable, a record is the way that I totally get involved with listening to the music. I can listen to high-res, it's great, it's clean, clear, and when I hear something new, I go, oh, I like that person. I'm going to go get the record. Even now, there's a lot of controversy. People will say, oh man, digital, all the new recordings are digital. And a lot of them are. Now, a lot of producers and studios and things have always kept analog recording, but I don't fall into one camp that analog is superior, digital is superior, or any combination of those. I think if it's well recorded, well mastered, and I've bought recent CDs. I bought just the other day here, Daniel Lanois, a producer who works, he's done U2 and all kinds of other artists. Anyway, he does solo music. His latest release was a record store release this past fall, and that record was recorded digitally. But it was mastered to analog for the LP pressing. So I just was playing around on Qobuz, went, hey, I'm going to listen to this high-res file. Played it through my system, went, yeah, that sounds good. Put the record on, played the same track, sit back and go, yeah, that just more involving. Even though technically a lot of people would say, oh, it's a digital recording, it would be superior to digital playback. At some point it might be if we have a digital transmission system that's good enough, but there's just a difference sitting back playing a record, and yeah, that's part of the process, is the whole thing. It's a different experience when you press a button and go, yeah, there's music, then taking out the record, making sure the record's reasonably clean, the stylus is clean, you put the record on, you cue it over, you start playing. That's a process, and some people are totally against it. That's always been part of the fun for me, is I'll read the record label, look at liner notes, see, oh man, who's the guitar player? I really like the guitar sound on that. Or, wow, that drummer has, incredible rhythm. And then I'll look at it and go, whoa, I'm going to look up, see who Simon Phillips is and what else he records on, or, follow artists that way. That's a level of involvement I think that turntables still offer an advantage, and I appreciate digital media, and as I mentioned, collect high res and probably own 1,500 CDs, but records are still the most fun and most involving and enjoyable for me, and it's the musical qualities. Yes, technically it has more distortion. It's a mechanical device. The stylus tip dragging through the record groove is vibrating and it generates some noise. People complain, oh, the dynamic range, it pops and ticks. The other thing that it is an advantage is you go up with a better turntable, there's actually less surface noise. The reason for that is when you maintain the relationship of the stylus tip in the record groove better, it's not affected as much by a little spot of dust or a small mark on the surface of the record groove. It still will be if it's really dirty or really scratched up or beat up, but I buy a lot of used records. I take them home, clean them on my vacuum record cleaning machine, and it's amazing that just the other day Good example. One of my neighbors came by and said, "Don't you collect records?" And I said, "Yeah." "Oh, my brother just passed away, and he had this bin of records in the basement." And I was like, "Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. I'll give them to you." So he brings them over, and I looked through, and a lot of them are moldy. I mean, they were like, they smelled bad, and they were moldy and stuff. And this one, I pulled it out, and the cover is all beat up and stuff. However, took the record out, looked pretty good, even though it smelled a little funny, cleaned it on my record cleaning machine, played it, and it sounds great. It's not flawless. There are some pops and ticks and things. And this is an interesting example because this is digital. This was recorded in, if I can find it. But this was a, I'll quote here. "This record is essentially an exact copy of the master tape and was not treated with any equalizing or limiting during final transfer to disc." So a PCM digital recording, this had to be early 80s. But good sounding recording. They transferred to vinyl. It turned out really well. It sounds really good. And after I was playing this, I decided, oh, let me see if it's on any of the streaming services. And it was on Tidal, and I played it on Tidal, and sounded good. But the record sounds better. And again, just the involvement, just the fun, not technically clarity. Yes, this has more noise. This has, it's not a perfect thing, but it was a free record that would have been thrown away if I didn't take it. And so that's kind of the fun. I look through used records. I'll even look in their $2 bargain bin occasionally and pull out stuff. Take it home, clean it, and it's amazing that you can find a record. I got Sade and an old Fleetwood Mac and some other stuff, and a couple bucks. And it's getting harder now. Used to be that you could see people advertising garage sales or estate sales, or come buy my whole record collection, $20 for a Peaches crate full, and that isn't happening as much because there are people who do that full time and watch all the Facebook marketplace ads and stuff and run over and buy them and go through them. But there still are bargains. And then, of course, now where we have all the reissues, some of those are awesome. There are some that are not so great, and I bought some expensive reissues that didn't sound as good as my original record did. But the great thing is that they're available, and so if you missed out, if you didn't buy that, one particular Beatles record, now you've got multiple choices of re-releases that are good quality vinyl. The remasters lately have been done by the original engineer's son, Giles Martin, and care is done with packaging and everything. So there's a great deal of good music available, and there are still some bargains and used stuff. And having somebody come over and say, "Don't you collect records?" Yes, I'll take it. So there was a lot of junk in there too, but there was some fun stuff. So we're going to play a little bit of music, and we are going to play. This is the kind of upper middle market for us. The Extension 9 Evolution. This guy incorporates a lot of technology of our top couple of models. This has a wonderful power supply that's regulated and isolated from the wall. A lot of turntables use the AC from the wall, 60 cycles from the wall, as their reference to set the motor speed. Our turntables, even in this price level, $500, the AC coming off the wall is converted to DC, sent into the turntable, and in the turntable is an AC generator. So it generates its own clean 60 cycle signal or 50 hertz depending on what the motor is, and is isolated from electrical variations. So that's really nice, but in this guy, it's really well regulated. So it has a more massive power supply, it has a better motor, the motor itself is actually floating, so it's not touching the chassis. This one has a large cast aluminum platter, and the bearing assembly on this is really unique. This rides on a ceramic bearing, which is extremely polished and is very durable, commonly used in some other turntables in the $10,000+ range, but pretty much unheard of in this price range. And we're about to bring out a model just below this, which will be $2,400, that also uses the ceramic bearing assembly. This one also has a magnetic support system. There's a magnet on the base of the turntable. There's a magnet underneath the platter around the bearing. The two magnets oppose each other to raise the weight, lessen the stress on the bearing. Finally, this has a vinyl mat. This is bonded to the aluminum platter. This is actually recycled records. So it has a perfect coupling to the record. It's also not going to generate static and pops and ticks and noise and things that some people complain about the felt mats or other material. I don't have a problem. I've used a felt mat for years and never had a problem, but some people do. But this is superior, has better mechanical characteristics for the record to sit on. This has a clamp that you can use. You don't have to. I'm not a fan necessarily. It can add a little more bass. If the record is warped, that can be an advantage to help flatten it out. But it does change the tonal balance a little bit, and there are those who swear for adding a weight or a clamp and others who don't. This has a fantastic tone arm. This carries on from here up to our $6,500 turntable. This is a composite carbon fiber and aluminum tone arm. This, of course, is made in-house. The carbon fiber is wrapped around the aluminum. The aluminum tube tapers in size, so it doesn't have a single diameter through the length of it. That helps to control resonance. And then combining the carbon fiber with the aluminum also adds to reduce any resonance, also makes it far stronger, but it's still lightweight. The tone arm design, you have a trade-off of too much mass. You could make the thing incredibly strong and solid, but then it would weigh so much you couldn't counterweight it and have it work with cartridges. There's a property in the cartridge called compliance, or how soft. It's like the suspension. A softer suspension is more compliant. A harder suspension is less compliant. You want a combination of the right arm characteristics and the right cartridge characteristics to get those two to work right together. This is a great way to have a really strong arm, but without having incredibly high mass. Behind the arm tube is a bearing assembly that's outstanding. It's really close tolerance. There's a group called the Annular Bearing Engineering Council, and they measure bearing tolerances. So this has ABEX 7 bearings. They're externally verified to be really good. So again, what it can do is allow the arm to move really freely up and down, side to side, but not in any other direction. You can touch the tone arm and try to wiggle it, and it doesn't do anything except it will move correctly side to side, up and down. Lots of other tone arms on the market. I saw one in Florida recently, and it was about a $60,000 tone arm. You could grab it. It was longer than this, but you could grab it near the head shell, and you could feel it move around. And that would be lossy, where the cartridge is trying to stay in the record groove and it's moving the arm around instead of sending an electrical signal out from the cartridge. This guy, as I mentioned, has balanced or unbalanced connections, so depending on what your electronics are designed to do, we're going to use balanced into this guy, and then out of this into this integrated amp, single-ended, because this amp does not have balanced inputs, and then out to the speakers here. So
Robert, while you're setting that up, would you like the water, and would anyone else like a drink? You have
I'll take a water.
water, his water. Anyone else like a drink? You can come over, I can bring it to you. We'll take his time here while he's,
sure.
you like a water?
No,
Robert?
I've got one here, thanks. But I do need to get dry talking.
Do you clean your new records?
Yes.
I do too.
Occasionally, I'll open one, and it looks really good,
Mm-hmm.
and I might even play it once, and then go, okay, does it sound really quiet and clean, then I won't. But most of the time, when and we have a great facility in Salina, Kansas, if you ever get the opportunity to go to see Acoustic Sounds, and go see the pressing plant there. And it's really cool, and they're really nice folks and stuff. Mold release, the way that they stamp records, they have these massive bins full of virgin vinyl pellets. Those get sent through a hopper into a little funnel type system, and then it gets heated up, and then it gets a blob of it stuck on or dropped onto a stamper, a metal stamper. And when that stamper presses down, there's a material that they apply to the surface of the metal so that the vinyl, as it cools and forms the shape they want, falls off. That's mold release compound. A lot of times that mold release compound is on the surface of the vinyl, and you pick it up and you can see this kind of whitish or cloudy-ish surface. Then for sure you'd want to clean. And if I see it, then I go, yep, it's going on the cleaning machine first. But and then used, I always clean.
Right.
I'll clean them once. I've got records, well, yeah, that's been cleaned once. We're about to play a record that I've owned for 20 plus years, and I haven't cleaned it in, probably 19 and a
That's
half
what I do.
years or whatever.
I do the vacuum. I have like an okey-dokey.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do it once and then maybe just wipe it down on the table if there's a little dust
Yeah,
or something.
on my turntable or right next to it, I have a little carbon fiber brush.
Yeah. That's what I have too.
And that I use to just keep the dust and
Yeah.
static off the surface. But yeah, it's again, it's a little bit of the process. But after I clean the record, I always put it in a nice sleeve, put it back in the jacket. Most of my records have outer sleeves, but if you take care of them, I have 3 older sisters, and I started collecting my records, inheriting from them. And so I've got, old Beatles records and Deep Purple and Rolling Stones and stuff from the 60s. And I still play them, and they don't always necessarily sound perfect, but they still are playable and sound good and are fun. And again, it's one of those where, I can live with a little bit of surface noise if it sounds really good. So, and I like the music, most important. So I'll say one more quick little thing about our industry. There's kind of a group of people that like to be identified as audiophiles. And, that's a cool thing. They're into the gear. To me, the gear only serves a purpose, and the purpose is to get more out of the music. So I'm a record collector and a music lover, but what a better system does for me is make me enjoy the music that I have even more. I will not sit there and move my speaker cable 2 centimeters and then listen again and move, my tone arm height up 1 millimeter and then listen again. I will look at things and make sure the tone arm is set up correctly and all of the adjustable parameters are optimized, but not obsess. To me, it's far more fun to discover new music and have fun listening to that than it is to obsess over the gear. I think there's overlap, but I certainly understand the desire. From an engineering standpoint, I get it, why you would obsess over little bitty details, because that's what has made hi-fi better over the years. And the engineering of why we have a $600 turntable that 15 years ago, you couldn't spend $2,500 on a turntable and get as good a sound quality as we have now. And that is things like machining tolerances and advances in electronics for power supply, or advances in the build quality of a motor, tolerances of the bearing of the platter. All those things keep advancing. It's also, I have an issue with vintage stuff. It's cool, I enjoy it, especially aesthetically, but I see stuff online and things of, oh man, this, old Pioneer PL510 turntable was so great. Or this old Marantz receiver, man, it's awesome, it's got this walnut cabinet. And it is, in that the nostalgia is the real thing. It's just like if you wanted a '69 Camaro when you were in high school, but couldn't afford it. But now, making good money, I can go buy one. Unless you're spending a great deal of money, that '69 Camaro doesn't compare to the performance of a new one. And you'll spend a lot more. Now, having it and going, yeah, this is really cool. But what I won't buy into is, with vintage gear, performance for the price comparing to new gear. And so I've gotten into some discussions at length and gone, well, look, the world has improved. Where would we be if things haven't gotten better in all areas of technology? And so, yep, I get the nostalgia and, yeah, my dad had one of those. It was really cool, and it's fun. And there are people that have a business of refurbishing and stuff, and that's fine and dandy. But I really fall strongly on the side of good new gear, properly set up, clearly offers a performance advantage than vintage stuff. So I'll quit my rant.
But,
Go ahead, but,
no, just,
oh,
no, it just goes on forever.
it does. And it's fine. I have no problem. I think it's cool that people
tear the city down. Take every brick and stone, shove it down to the ground. If I had my way, would live my life again.
It's a record I bought for £5 in England in about 1990.
If I had my way,
Nothing fancy.
live my life
Average
again.
on myself, just like the guy and like his sound. And I've owned it for 30 years. And
Wouldn't change a thing, and I'd keep the same old friends.
just for fun, I'm gonna go backwards. I should have gone the other way. Play the same thing on a step down.
Is it a dollar?
Robert, what speakers are we listening to?
Dolly Oberon 6s. Is that right? Oh, Rubicon 6s, sorry. Close to the same volume.
I had my way, tear the city down. I had my way, tear the city down. Take every brick and stone, shove it down to the ground. If I had my way, would live my life again. If I had my way, I'd live my life again.
This still sounds great. To me, everybody has a threshold where when you get to a level of performance in the system that you just have fun listening, that's where you need to be. You don't have to necessarily spend $100,000 on a system, but you need to spend enough to where you forget about, oh man, I could upgrade this component or this component. People have a different threshold of where they reach that point. And to me, I know that that doesn't sound as good as that, but this still sounds really good, and it's really fun and involving. In turntables, to me, that point is our debut Carbon Evo, our $600 turntable. Yep, I know what's missing compared to a higher end turntable, but there's enough there that it would still make me play records and sit and listen to my system. And that's pretty rare. There are lots of $1,500, $2,000 turntables that do some things really well, but don't communicate the music as well as our $600 turntable does. This, we went down in turntable, tone arm, and cartridge. We still kept the important elements of the music. Yep, you could hear some details. There were some things that this brought out of the record better than that did. But this is, you know, it's a degree of improvement, and some people will value that and say, I can hear a difference. I want to spend more because I know what's possible. And others would reach a point and say, oh, that's good enough. The great thing is we offer a range of both turntables and electronics through a really wide space. And all the way through, you'll get something that is well built and good sounding and upgradable, and you'll keep for a long, long time. Not disposable, even some of our inexpensive products, and we've got phono preamps for 99 bucks and stuff. They're even built better than they should be. So parts quality, build quality is outstanding, and so it doesn't matter where you land. If it makes sense to you, then that's the... Okay, I'm going to play this old record, and we're going to go the other way. This will be a case of, you'll be able to hear a little bit about surface noise and stuff of the lesser turntable will be a little bit louder than on the better turntable.
Kind of, is that a moving magnet on the right side?
It sure is, yeah.
And you have a moving coil in the middle?
Yes. So because of the quality of the turntable, we offer packages. In most of our turntables, the turntable comes with a cartridge. When you get up in price from, well, really any of our extension or RPM 910, our upper turntables are specified without cartridge. However, in the case of this one, this turntable is $3,500. This cartridge is $900. But if you purchase the cartridge with the turntable, it's $500. So this is $39.99 all in, turntable, arm, cartridge. And we chose a moving coil because that's a perfect cartridge for this tone arm and the turntable, and so a great match. See if I can get this key.
My father told me, lying on his bed of death, boy says, woman, she's gonna make it. Don't fool yourself. 'Cause she's got something to make a man lay that money right in her hand. The very thing that makes her rich will make you poor. The very thing that makes her rich will make you poor. That's right. Well, I put you behind the wheel of the deuce and a quarter. Yes, I did. Had you living like a rich man's daughter. Yes, I did. I showed it while you were living.
Don't let that go too far. Forget what it sounds like pretty quickly.
So I was listening to surface noise.
Yep. Yeah, that's a little louder. Still
My father told me, lying on his bed of death, boy says, woman, she's gonna make it. Don't fool yourself. 'Cause she's got something to make a man lay that money right in her hand. The very thing that makes her rich will make you poor. The very thing that makes her rich will make you poor. That's right. Well, I put you behind the wheel of the deuce and a quarter. Yes, I did.
this phono preamp is balanced and has more gain, so it's a little louder than the one built in that was feeding into. So that's a little unfair. You can still hear the dynamics, the interplay of the voice. There are some things that are real apparent that this does better than that, but because it was louder initially, especially a little more surface noise, and that was just simply that we had the volume here essentially higher than we did on the less expensive turntable.
Is that high output?
It's not, no, it's a low output, but this phono stage has a lot of gain available. We're using moderately high gain, not the highest. But yeah, low output, and that's another element of moving coil. And in most cases, low output sounds better, simply because the way you get high output is you add coil mass. You have more windings on the coils to generate a higher electrical signal, and that means you're adding more mass, so you're restricting the movement of the stylus. But there are trade-offs there too. There can be an advantage of having higher output. Again, electronics downstream not needing to do as much work. So in some of our cartridges, and this one in particular, it comes in both high output and low output. We have a cartridge called the Blue Point, which is also available high output and low output. And then our top 3 are only available in low output design. So, anybody want to hear classical, jazz, reggae, anything else kind of music, or?
Yes.
Sure. Again, that was a record I rescued from the dumpster,
Nice.
and all things wrong. It's a digital recording from 1980 something. It's should be a prime example of why a CD should be better. Should be. And someday we will get there with digital technology, I'm sure. And again, I enjoy digital, so I like.
So how much is that turntable on the right?
This one's 1,700.
17.
Turntable arm cartridge. This one's 4,000 with this particular cartridge. We have steps all over. So again, our entry level is about $300, and then get into $500. The debut Carbon Evo I mentioned is $600. We have a model called the X1, which looks just like this, but a little smaller. So a little lighter weight plinth, a little lower mass platter, much of the same design principles as in this, and it's $1,100. This one's $1,700, $1,699 as I mentioned. We have a new one coming out that will be $2,400, and it will be right in between these in technology. And then from here, we have models going up to $12,000 with refinements in motor, power supply, tone arm, phono cartridge, improvements in every area as you go up. So. Yes, sure. Sorry. I think I turned it down to change the record. This is a probably 57 recording, reissued in stereo 2 or 3 years ago, and like $20, but good sounding, but not a necessarily audiophile pressing, but more of a heritage recording. So I'm a own guitars, but I play with them. I don't play them. So my skill in music is system setup, and I can do that incredibly well because I've never been able to master an instrument. So I joke that that's my instrument, is playing a stereo system and doing setup and optimizing things and have fun with that. But love guitar, so I have, everything Stevie Ray Vaughan ever recorded, and there's all kinds of blues and rock and jazz and all kinds of. I hear guitar in recordings, can tell who the player is, and follow. I hear something in his song and go, wow, I'm going to see what that person, what else they recorded or appeared on or contributed to. So.
You do that professionally as far as like consulting and setup?
Not really. I do it for dealers and stores and shows, like we're about to do in Chicago a show called Axpona, a high-end audio show. And I'll be there with some of our people, and we'll have a system set up and do
We're
some
gonna
things.
be there, so don't think we're stalking you.
You're gonna be there?
Yes, we're not stalking you.
That's my favorite show. It's fun. It's they can be good and bad. Shows can be. I was just in Tampa for the Florida Audio Expo a few weeks ago. Very nice, but we had a modest system set up, and there were a lot of $500,000 to $1 million systems set up in the main floor of this hotel. And it's very impressive, it's very cool. You go in and wow, this giant sound. A German manufacturer had this system set up, these gigantic speakers. They have this really odd operating principle. Instead of woofers and tweeters, they have this pulsating orb. It's not even an orb because its shape is cylindrical more than anything. But anyway, big bad system, $1 million, and people were like, wow, that thing is really cool. And it did some things really well. Plays very loud, has great bass. The size of the sound is enormous. You sit back and listen, it's like, wow, that guy sounds like he's 20 feet tall and, weighs 5,000 pounds. Not very realistic. The bad thing is, a lot of times, those systems don't communicate the music. So you listen to them, you go, oh wow, that bass is awesome. It thumps, it's got bass extension and dynamics. But you listen to the vocal, and it doesn't sound in proportion, it doesn't sound natural. The musicians aren't necessarily playing in time with each other. You hear this big massive things, and you go, well, that's really cool, and it's really impressive for a minute. And then after a few minutes, since mentally you don't follow it, you're kind of like, okay, I've had enough. And so it was funny, we had a system that was $20,000, everything. Turntable, arm, cartridge, phono stage, amplifier, speaker stands, cables, everything. And modest sized speakers, but sounded really good, worked really well in the room, and played music beautifully. We had the system really well set up. And we had critics and reviewers, and of course customers come in. And if they listened, sat down, paid attention, would say, wow, this sounds really good. Frequently we got comments of, hey, we were just down the hall at, this French company that has a $200,000 system, and yeah, that was really loud, but this sounds better. Well, how come? Why does this system sound better? And a lot of it is care, and then the system was appropriate for the size of the room as well. But just because it's big and expensive doesn't necessarily mean it's truly better. And so it's a fun thing to be able to get good performance out of something that's more moderate than when you have unlimited money. You should be able to make something really amazing. And sometimes systems do. But I think it's a more impressive result to get fantastic performance at a price level that is more affordable to more people. Because, you know, this isn't a selfish thing. The whole point of having a good stereo is joy. It's fun. You drive in traffic and somebody cuts you off and you go, race ahead of you and slam on my brakes or something. So you get angry. You have a tough day at work. You come home, you have a nice system, put on a record, and I guarantee your mood will change. Pretty soon you're like going, aha. You get involved with the music and those other things go away. So the purpose of a system is to be fun, to enjoy it, to open your horizons. It might make you say, I don't like, you know, a specific type of music, opera, or I don't like reggae, or I don't like, you know, some kind of music. And you hear it on a good system and you'll change your mind.
Did we hear the turntable on the left at some point?
Yeah, it's not hooked
You wanna
up.
hear that?
It's not.
But yes,
Okay.
No, apparently not.
well,
You can buy one.
no. These guys, we could play it in another room on another system. So,
You really want to hear that one?
I want to compare it to the one on the right.
heard reggae in college. It was like, it's okay. A lot of people I knew and a good friend of mine said, I don't like it. It's really repetitive, just this. When you hear it on a good system and you hear everything that's going on and go, oh, I can follow what the bass line is. I'm going to follow what the guitar or the saxophone or the other horns or the vocals. This one is Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones singing with Peter Tosh. And it's just fun, and I have reggae records that I really enjoy. Didn't enjoy them when I was younger and didn't explore the genre very much because I thought, this is very interesting. A good system will do that. Another one for me is opera. When my parents played opera on a console or an old record player thing, it was like, ugh, what's that screeching stuff? It was just not at all any good. And I own opera records and CDs and high-res digital and stuff, and enjoy it, and it sounds good. And it took having a system that was communicative enough to me to make me enjoy it and go, okay, I don't speak German or Italian, but I can understand what they're expressing. And get interested in the music. So that's again, the goal of all this should be is have fun, open your horizons, enjoy music. John, this is a great sounding turntable for its price. If at all possible, though, the one-up, the debut Carbon Evo, that's a star. That's some of the models in our line are just so good for the cost that $600, spend $100 over this. Unfortunately, they don't have one because we are, even though it's available in 7 finishes, we have.
Yes, we do.
You do? Debut Carbon Evo?
6 of them. You can have any color you want as long as it's satin black.
Okay. Is there one out?
Yes,
Could we bring it over?
yes.
I'll move this because we can plug that in real easy right away. Okay? I didn't think they had one. We have about 884 on back order right now. So I didn't think they.
And they've got 6 of them here?
Yeah. Well, it's what we do with back orders. It's chronologically based. So if they had them on order for months, then they get them ahead of somebody who just ordered one.
Can you say something more while you're doing that about the one that's coming out between the 2 of those?
Yes. That's called the X8. That will be, it will have the ceramic magnetic bearing. It will have this platter, not quite as heavy as this. It will have this motor, but not as well isolated from the plinth. And it will have this tone arm. It's going to be, I have one at home right this minute.
With a cartridge, or does it?
Yes, it will come with this cartridge initially because we've got some constraints on cartridge availability. So, but it's going to be, yeah, just put it right here. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Now watch out for the arm cables. The arm's not locked, no. For that one? It was on the table. It's right here. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want this before the other one was?
So, for cost reasons, the compromises of this. This has a aluminum arm tube, one piece, nice. This has a carbon fiber arm tube. This has a simpler power supply and motor. This has a not as close tolerance bearing. This incorporates all those things. So this has better tone arm, better arm bearing, heavier mass platter, and this one's steel with a damping ring in the inside of it, better bearing quality. This is, there are lots of turntables on the market at $1,000 that just don't compare to this sonically. It's really quite an achievement. So it's both commercial and critically, a huge success. So.
And you can upgrade this one too?
You sure can.
And what's the difference between the stylus on these 2?
That one's an Ortophone, kind of an entry level. The great thing is, the one we include on ours, even at that level, there are manufacturers that put a $6 Chinese or Japanese sourced cartridge on a $500 or $600 or $700 turntable. Well, there's one that's $775, uses a $6 cartridge. This one's not amazing. It's $69, but Ortophone, a Danish cartridge manufacturer, they make some good, inexpensive cartridges. We use those. As we go up, this is the first one that has a Sumiko, one of our cartridges. This one's called the Rainier. So this is our entry level in this series of phono cartridges. It's a moving magnet, again, really good sounding cartridge, but is upgradable 3 steps just simply via the stylus.
And what's the price difference between those two?
The cartridges,
No, the whole turntable.
$100.
So why is that not a no-brainer?
It is a no-brainer. That's why John was saying, can we hear that one? I was like, yeah, we can play. And there's one thing about this. This has a built-in phono preamp.
Right.
So this is a huge success for folks who want to plug this into, let's say, an integrated amp that doesn't have phono input, or they're going to play this through a whole house audio system. They've got a rack and they've got an amp and it feeds music to 10 rooms in the house. Or they're using Sonos or Blue Sound or Hios or something to stream music to speakers around the house. With the phono built into here, you plug this right into an input like you would a CD player or tuner or anything else, and then bam, it plays. This one needs a phono stage behind it. So it needs a phono preamp or phono circuit built into an amplifier or preamp or receiver in order for it to function. So we'll be using the phono stage in this black integrated amp. This could take a second. We have a little wait for anti-skate to prevent the arm from pulling in one direction or another that comes off fairly easy. Got it. Oh. Yeah. Sure, I've got one right there. Cut it at the top. Yeah. You get something for your $59.
2 batteries.
Yeah. Sure.
I apologize, he's checking it because people fiddle with them when they're on the floor.
Sure.
Make sure it's set right.
The new one on the left, is that the A1?
That is not.
That is not.
The A1 is our automatic turntable. And that one is the,
The A1 is gonna be manufactured by the
German,
German.
Fehrenbacher, actually, yes.
Okay.
What's your take on components that will reduce and remove pops, like the sugar cube?
Yeah. Yeah, they can make it more enjoyable to some. I'm not a fan, though it's interesting that you bring that up, because our engineers in Vienna have been working on a analog noise reduction system. And we'll see if it, the bad thing about it is it often removes the life in the music. So it can make it quieter, but oftentimes makes it sound worse.
John's not a fan of minor little imperfections. I can overlook them. But I'm a little more old school.
Whoops. Hey, listen how fast that is.
Woohoo! 45 RPM?
Yes, indeed.
So what's the name of that one? Which one is that again?
Debut Carbon Evo. For me about this does not do everything this does. There are details, there are separation of instruments, things that this does clearly better. This doesn't do things wrong. Lots of turntables competitive with this price make a lot of mistakes because of bearing quality and the cartridge vibrating, because of speed inaccuracy, because of acoustic breakthrough into the turntable. Its sins are omission, not commission, not adding stuff that shouldn't be there. Doesn't get everything that's in that record out of that recording, as well as spending 5 times as much, 7 times as much. But it does a great job, and again, that's this. If I couldn't have a turntable better than this, I would still enjoy and listen and play records on it. Yep, I know what's possible with something better, but this does the fundamental things right, and it is because of the design principles shared with our better turntables. We know that a good bearing for the platter means it's going to spin freely. A good platter with mass will keep the speed accurate. A good motor with good electronic control. A good tone arm with good bearings. It's rigid. It does all the right things. So really a fun achievement. So. Now we're going to switch gears entirely. Another one of those things that I thought I didn't like until I heard on a good system, and that's chamber music. And when it's done well, it's fun, and there's a captivating rhythmic quality, and little annoying, or is it enjoyable, or no?
Trying to hide the middle one?
Okay, sure.
That one doesn't do it for me.
Do all the models come with the integrated dust cover?
They do. Well, we make a couple RPM series that look funny,
Yeah.
and they don't have a dust cover. But all of these in a more conventional chassis, rectangular size or type, do come with a dust cover. So. So definitely more there. And did that make more sense? Did it?
Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you may not like it, and that's fine because everybody has different tastes in music. But as I mentioned, that just the fact of, to me, the better the system, the more likely I am to appreciate different types of music. So, and here's one thing we haven't played yet, which is a female vocal.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody always asks, play a female? This is kind of a pop recording, but fun.
Sky of ink and diamond stars, empty streets
And I could go on all night, but it's about to get dark and it's our 8 o'clock witching hour, so. Questions, comments, anybody? Did I say anything that you went, what?
Now, I know the anti-skate is the weighted type on that one. Is it also weighted
It
on
is.
those?
Yeah, it is. Most of our turntables have that. Some of our entry level have a little spring assembly in the base of the arm. We've tried everything, and nothing works as well as the little weight with the little fishing line. It works well. It's simple. It's easy. It doesn't create additional tension on the bearing or magnetic force or some other things that alternative methods do. So it's a little, every once in a while they get lost, but we have them available separately because we get calls all the time. I've dropped my skate weight. And all that is, the arm has a tendency to pull towards the center of the record. In a straight arm, the head shell is tilted a little bit. In a curved arm, S-shaped, the shape, the cartridge body, is trying to be perfectly perpendicular to the record groove in the center of the record. Well, to get that angle right relative to the pivot point of the bearing, there's a tendency to pull toward the center. It's just the physics of the arm wants to pull to the center. You have to offset that with a small amount of force so that it stays in the center of the record groove. It doesn't lean towards the left channel, or if you had too much anti-skate, lean to the right channel. And so this method we use in every tone arm from our $400 to our $15,000 model.
Do you put a weight on your record while you're playing it?
I generally don't. Some models come with it, and others it's an option. You could put it on any of ours. It's debatable whether it's better or worse. It's different, and sometimes it is certainly better. Where I find an advantage is a worked record. You put it on and you look at it, and the arm is doing this because the record is dished or warped, and oftentimes you can put the weight or clamp on it and flatten the record out, and I think it plays better, but I'm not such a fan. The good thing is our bearings are really good. If the bearing for the platter was lower quality and you put a weight or clamp on it and you couple the record more firmly to the bearing, any noise in the bearing or the drive system gets transmitted through the record. So it actually is often worse. And many manufacturers suggest don't use a weight, don't use a clamp. So. Yes. Okay.
First, are you reviewing my customers individually?
Sure.
Second, are there any discounts for special pricing tonight?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if, I know that we have some incentives and things, but also got some goodies if anybody's.
Yeah, that was the third question. Any giveaways or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who wears a beanie? These stylishly cool Sumiko beanies are available for free if anyone would like a beanie. We've got some t-shirts, which are really cool. Let's see, some keychains, a couple things. The device I was using to check the tracking force on that turntable over there, where did I put it?
It's over here on the left.
Oh, yeah.
I've got another question.
Okay.
So if there's such a little price difference between stylus, why isn't that like a natural thing to just like push it to the top? I mean, like you were saying, it's $50, $100, $150.
Yeah.
Gets you such an improvement. And I guess part of that too is how do you keep track of how many hours you've got on that stylus? I mean, you get a little chart out, mark down every time you're playing out? Or?
No, you have to kind of just wing it. I know people that have a stopwatch by their turntable and touch it, and every time they play a record and then touch it, yeah, and that's too obsessive. For me, I just kind of keep track of, okay, on the average week, here's how many hours I play, multiply that. Basically, about every 2 years, I look closely at the stylus, and you can bring it in. They've got a great microscope here and can magnify, take a look, and see if there's any wear signs. It's also a good thing for a good turntable to have it gone through once a year or every couple years. Bring it in, have them set everything up, make sure tracking force is right, anti-skate's right, and that's a little bit of what comes with purchasing a good turntable from a good shop. And I'll say one more quick thing about that. Having been in retail for 30 years, I know how important it is to have a great resource like this. You have passionate people who suggest and help you with the choice of what's appropriate, but then also will set up, service, and support you. Some of our stuff is available online, and we've got sellers that sell a ton of it and ship it all over the country, and it drives me crazy that that's what the market demands, because I think it's so important to have someone that you trust, that you can call, that you can talk to, you can bring it into, and they won't try to upsell you on something or push more stuff on you, but just, oh, you're right, this isn't working correctly. If we replace the stylus, put a new one in, you'll be fine. Or, hey, you do want to upgrade, great, we can fit the new stylus right here, or do other upgrades for you. But it's really a great thing to have a local dealer that has good skills, good knowledge, and will service and support the products, which is a whole lot different than sending an email or getting an automated phone answering system that you hope someone will know anything about what they're doing who's going to answer the phone. And, you know, and even then, they can't physically see the situation. And so, you know, they won't know the best answer for you. So I think and that's Final Renaissance. Thanks, Dan, Eva, Lucas, all the guys here. It's really lucky to be in this market. So support the guys, buy records, buy gear, and important thing. I hope that, you know, in 30 years from now, specialty stores like this will still exist and still have their place and purpose, and it's
Well, I'm raising one of them. My 10-year-old picked out a CD, Green Day and Pink Floyd.
wow.
So I'm doing something right.
You bet. Yeah.
I'm just saying, he likes
Good.
the whole CD.
Go ahead.
What options do you have for upgrading the X2 or X1 to
Yeah.
somewhere between the next model? Or
Yeah, what you would do, you could take the X1 and you could go to our better outboard power supply, our better inner platter machined aluminum inner platter bearing, better phono cartridge, and then that's about it. Beyond that, then you'd have to step up to an even better turntable. So, and that would be from the X2, you'd go to the new X8 that's coming out. That's going to be this summer. We'll probably see it in June. So. All right.
Thank you, Robert.
Sure. Woo! It's fun. I mean,